I'm Dr. Neena Nair from Valia College, Mumbai. Welcome all of you to the second academic session of our Action-Oriented Global Tipping Point Summit. We're delighted to see participants from various parts of India and from other countries as well. Before we begin the session, may I request all participants who have a question to kindly type your name at the end of the question. This makes it easier for us to answer in the Q&A session. I'm sure you would all agree that it is rather difficult to say that this question is from Samsung or iPhone. Thank you. This summit has been conceptualized by the dynamic education futurist, TEDx speaker, internationally acclaimed educator and storyteller, Dr. Kumi S. Vivina. In October 2016, Dr. Vivina retired as professor and head of the Department of English, University of Mumbai, India. Dr. Vivina has 2 PhD degrees to her credit, one in literature and the other in education. She has published 11 books and 58 papers in peer-reviewed national and international journals and critical anthologies. She has won numerous national and international awards. In 2013, her book on education, Sourceful Intelligence, was selected as among the 18 best books published in the USA. And her most recent book, What Children Really Want, has received critical acclaim from educators, psychologists, parents, writers from all over the world. In 2015, she was selected by the world leaders in education as among the 35 women from across the world changing educational paradigms. Dr. Vivina has her own storytelling organization called Wordfully Yours, which hosts storytelling programs and conducts training workshops. We now invite you to view a short film on the summit, followed by a few words by Dr. Vivina. Thank you.
So a summit of this kind cannot really be handled by one person alone. For several months now, 108 people have been consistently working to make the summit a success. We have fantastic world-class speakers, far in the belly change facilitators who have been liaising with the speakers and creating very, very interesting action projects. Special thanks to our advisory board comprising Dr. Firoza Godrej, Mr. Noshir Kurodi, Mr. Noshir Dadrawala, Mr. Sanjay Rastogi of Tata Trent, Mr. Yazdi Tantra, Ms. Debika Chatterjee, Ms. Rakhi Chabria, and Ms. Fiona Reynolds. Special thanks to my summit coordinator, Ms. Donna Reen. Ms. Donna Reen has been working with me now for over 20 months on this summit. A very special thank you to you, Donna. The core committee comprises, once again, Mr. Yazdi Tantra, Ms. Deepa Soman, Mr. Milith Soman, Glenn Concessio, and Bhavin Shah. We have several who have partnered with us, Tata Trent, Tantra Tech, K-Merck, Lumiere Business Solutions, Education World, Parent World, Penn Ultimate, Teachers Help Teachers, First Moms Club, and Wolves. The wonderful film that you saw at the outset was made by Wolves. We have been extremely fortunate to get some endorsements from people like His Holiness the Dalai Lama. Here is a letter, far too long for me to read out to you, but a short excerpt will suffice. The Dalai Lama says, I am pleased to know about the Global Tipping Point Summit and its focus on improving the present education system so that our younger generation can become more responsible citizens of our planet. We have also received endorsements from General Shokin Chavan, Lieutenant General Shokin Chavan, the renowned psychiatrist, Mr. Kersi Chowda, Mr. Shamak Dava, internationally acclaimed choreographer, singer, performer, and entertainment director. Shri M, spiritual guide, social reformer, educationist, and Padma Bhushan awardee. Cyrus Brocha, TV and media person, theater personality, comedian, podcaster, and author. And Mr. Baman Irani, theater and film actor, voice artist, and photographer. The online Global Tipping Point Summit from November this year to January 2021 is designed to explore paradigm shifts in education and parenting in an innovative way. Our aim is to create healthy learning and nurturing ecosystems by combining knowledge with self-awareness and wisdom to transform our lack-based consciousness into one rooted in abundance. Who will be attending the summit? Policymakers and education board authorities, principals, teachers, college and university professors, parents, caregivers, librarians, counselors, students, and anyone who's interested in education and parenting. What do we do differently? We have world-class visionaries and thought expound their ideas and point the way in the right direction. They will be supported by far in the belly change facilitators who will suggest effective and practical ways of implementing the ideas of the speakers. At the online summit, participants will be invited to form action groups in the areas of their choice and to create the change they wish to see in the world. By 2025, we hope to reach out to as many people as possible through face-to-face and online talks and workshops. Come, be a part of the change. For more details on the summit, please visit our website www.gtps4change.org. See you there.
Thank you, ma'am. We now go on to welcome our speaker of the day, Mr. Manit Jain. As the co-founder of the Heritage Group of Schools, Manit has championed the cause of experiential learning, launching it successfully in the mainstream environment. He is driven by the cause of real and humane education and continues to advocate and address the need for reimagining schools. Heritage Experiential Learning School has consistently been ranked among the top schools in the country and is widely recognized for its culture of continuous innovation. Manit is also leading reforms in education policy through his role as the national chairperson of FICI, that is, Federation of Indian Chambers of Commerce and Industries, School Education Arm. He continues to found new ventures like I Am a Teacher, a postgraduate diploma in learning and teaching that is changing the paradigm of teacher education in India, and it now runs its second center at the American School of Bombay. He holds a master's degree in education from Harvard University. Welcome, Mr. Jain. Over to you. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Nina, for the generous introduction. I must say, my first encounter with experiential learning happened in the year 2004 when we set up this school, and I first walked into the classroom, spent half a day there, and was reminded of my own awful time, I would say, in school, if I could say that actually. I was reminded of times when I was completely bored out of my mind, sitting there, wondering why I was learning what I was learning. And as this happened, it was a very, very visceral feeling. I decided that I had to do something about it, and we could not subject our children to that kind of education. So I started going around the world and the country, visiting some of the more progressive schools that practiced experiential learning. Now, there are several definitions and frameworks that one can look at. And in our experience at Heritage, we believe it is a holistic process of meaning making that engages the whole being of the learner: heart, head, body, and soul. And often, educators confuse learning with mere experiences or activity. While activity may be engaging at times, not all activity leads to learning, particularly not the learning that you're wishing for. For example, you could be reading a book without necessarily comprehending the meaning. This could happen for multiple reasons. It could be the lack of engagement, that you're simply going through a task, not necessarily focusing your attention. Happens to many students we know, happened to all of us as kids. Another reason could be that the learner simply cannot comprehend the text. In both cases, there is a chance that the student would not make any meaning from the reading. Likewise, in life, we go through multiple experiences without necessarily engaging with them deeply or even stopping to reflect on them, to make meaning or to actually learn from them. Because when we immerse ourselves in meaningful experiences, feel them, absorb them, reflect on them, and then form our own theories or draw our personal insights from them, and then apply the learning we have in different contexts, that we actually complete the cycle of learning. So let us look at the Kolb's learning cycle, the framework Heritage adopted. And through the simple example of riding a bicycle, let us see how this works. So when one decides to learn how to ride a bike, there is a certain element of excitement or even nervousness. Yeah. Uh, but one thing is sure, that there is a very high level of engagement, whether it is out of fear or out of excitement. One tries to ride the bike and then reflects individually or with someone on what went right and what did not, or what one could do differently. After a few attempts and some reflections, one starts conceptualizing. For example, one might figure out if they're moving at a high speed and they brake, they could lose balance and fall if they brake suddenly. So now one uses this theory to try again, perhaps braking and then releasing the brake for a moment and then braking again. So there is some action, some concrete experience, followed by some reflective observation. It could be listening, it could be observing, it could be reading, or just personal reflection or dialogue with another person. And then abstract conceptualization. You form a theory, you form a personal learning, and then you again engage in experimentation, and the cycle goes on. Now, you could enter the cycle at any stage, but for learning to be effective, one would have to go through all stages, ideally. Now, one of the biggest issues with experiential learning is when educators start treating it as just activity. So it's also become a buzzword, and we don't want a situation where educators now replace textbooks with activities. So let us look at a simple framework from Susie Boss and Lammer, who uh, explained beautifully, their framework was explained beautifully in an article by Alex Walenkik. I can't pronounce the name properly. They encourage teachers to consider two questions when deciding whether to use project-based learning or not. Is what is being taught important to learning? And is it appropriate for a project? Does it lend itself to project-based learning? And let's now, we've got four quadrants here. The important is on the top, the unimportant is below, the inappropriate on your left, and appropriate on your right. So let's look at each quadrant, starting with the top left. Important for learning, but not appropriate for a project. This may include things like lab safety in a science classroom, classroom expectations, or definitions of key vocabulary words. Yes, you could use a PBL approach for this kind of learning, but it would not be the best use of time because this is the kind of learning that does not lend itself easily to sustained inquiry. Opposite of the top left is the bottom right, where we find activities that are appropriate for a project, but the concepts or skills are unimportant to the learning that you want to accomplish. This kind of learning can be thought of as fluff. It is fun, it is superficially engaging, but it doesn't add much value. The activities in this quadrant may include craft projects in which every student does the same thing in the same way. I'm not saying every craft project, but not to develop a crucial skill. While there may be times to do a fluff project, such as a class party or the day before a term break, teachers are cautioned to limit how often they do these kind of projects. The bottom left quadrant is the one that I hope all teachers abandon. This quadrant contains busy work, often in the form of worksheets that do not aid in student learning or other activities of some kind. Busy work may also include crossword puzzles, word searches, and have students writing or finding vocabulary words, but not using them in a way that transfers knowledge in a meaningful way. The last quadrant is, of course, the combination of concept or skills that are important for learning and appropriate to a project. This is where high quality project based learning resides. High quality project based learning is rooted in knowledge and skills that students will be able to use across multiple contexts and are best learned through sustained inquiry. Now, at Heritage, we played across all quadrants from, I would say, 2004 to 2010. We had several failed experiences, several failed experiments, but we continued our own experiential learning cycle, as in constantly reviewing, figuring out what we needed to do differently, and constantly experimenting. By 2010-11, I would say our teachers have developed a fairly good understanding of how projects work. And the best way to demonstrate that to you would be through a concrete example. But before I get to a concrete example, it is important to share the vision of the organization and why and where such learning fits in. So, uh, in 2004, when we started our school transformation, disillusioned by what I saw inside the classroom, we articulated what student preparedness means to us in four dimensions of growth. So, what is it that we want to achieve for our students? And the most important bit was on the self, the ability to know and accept one's own swabhav. Because what I saw in classrooms or what I had experienced as a student was that there was such fierce judgment in classrooms, so much comparison, ranking, humiliation, and often not intentional. But many behaviors have got normalized to a point in our society where we can easily batter the self esteem of a child, or, for instance, focus on deficits as opposed to focusing on capacities, which kind of prevents people from being free, from living from a space of, where a person can completely be themselves. So, self to us is the primary goal of education, and to ensure that people are comfortable in their own swabhav, in their own skin, whoever they are. How many of us even know what gives us joy? And this work on self is a journey to understand my fears, my triggers, particularly my emotions, to understand how to manage my emotions, how to express them productively, to live life from a space of consciousness. The second bit is on relationships, your capacity to relate. Uh, and if you think about it, many people are questioning today in the world, are relationships becoming too mechanical? Are they getting too transactional? Is the world going through an epidemic of loneliness? Depression, they say, will become the biggest killer in the world by 2030. We have all wished for ourselves at different times in our lives to have had a better toolkit to relate, haven't we? Many of us suffer in silence, and many of us cannot contain our outbursts. What does it mean to understand another? What does it mean to give love? What does it mean to receive love? Have we built walls around us? Walls that we thought would protect us but end up imprisoning us? The capacity to relate, to be able to build deep, meaningful, and enduring relationships is essential to a fulfilling life. Livelihood, the third thing, in its holistic sense, not just providing them the skills to be successful in careers, but also the sense of purpose, to find meaning in what they do, to find their calling, their passion, and in jobs where they will experience mastery, where they will feel like they're growing every day, not stagnating, where one can say, I'm a better human being than I was 2 years ago. Money, meaning, and mastery must come together if they wish to have fulfilling work lives. And if you have the self, the relationships, and the livelihood in place, do you use it purely for your own benefit or to make the world a better place? How do we embed in kids the quality of care and compassion? Our kids come from insulated, gated communities. How do you build a curriculum that sensitizes them to the problems the world faces, whether it is the environment, poverty, discrimination, fundamentalism, gender issues? How do you make them agents of change and not mere victims or spectators? As an institution, how do we ensure that we value kindness as much as we value achievement? So, how does one realize this vision through experiential learning? And now, let me share a concrete example. So in one of the previous years, our students in seventh grade started mentioning their frustration around stories from parents that they would ride bicycles everywhere in their neighborhoods. And they said, these kids said that they wanted a bike path in the city of Gurgaon, which is where our school is. Now, for them, it was as simple as writing a letter to the CM and it would happen. And we had to tell them that if we want it, we must build a strong case through research. So we all agreed to run a 6-month project. The teachers designed this project on some simple principles. One, we need an authentic purpose. The children must experience a sense of purpose and relevance. Second, the relevance actually also needs to come in terms of what they need to learn in terms of curricular outcomes. Third, real problem solving, not simile. And fourth, something that creates real change. So in the first phase, we brought some old bikes, dismantled them, remodeled and redesigned them, put them together, and then donated them. First step was to make a big project plan with these students, to set clear goals, make small teams. Smriti, can you roll back, please? To make small teams uh, and assign responsibilities, and then started the real work. This part focused on innovation, creative thinking, building an ethic of excellence in craftsmanship, teaching them how simple machines work. They also created manuals on how bicycles work that were sold in bicycle shops. All projects have a final product, very high quality products that they need to create. And in many projects, there are multiple products. And this is where students also exercise choice. In the second phase of the project, they learned about the whole history of bicycles, analyzing how each bicycle component uh, evolved, how the bicycles were invented. And an important idea to understand here was how inventions shape humanity. Studies show us that the invention of bicycles had a significant impact on women's mobility and hence independence. The students then engaged in active research, talking to commuters, cyclists, citizens of Gurgaon to start gathering data on what is preventing them from using this mode of transport and what they needed. What would encourage people to use bicycles? What percentage of people would be willing to move to non motorized transport if there was an option? And then in the third phase, they studied models in different cities where it had worked, like Amsterdam, which interestingly has a similar population and size as Gurgaon. Again, looking at best practice around the globe and building a strong case. How do you convince the people up there to make that change? What they were learning in this whole process was these skills like deep engagement, research, data handling, organizing, planning, problem solving, making connections, all parts of creative intelligence. And on the other hand, working in teams, holding each other accountable, embracing the better ideas of others, persuading, influencing, managing failure, brainstorming, stuff that builds social intelligence, stuff that builds your capacity for the self, for reflection, for relationships, but in a real world situation, not a simulation. So, multiple research documents in the last 5 or 7 years, particularly with the advent of the fourth industrial revolution, have spoken about how social intelligence and creative intelligence are going to become the two most important things to focus on in education. Now, while all these skills were important, the teachers had the difficult task of ensuring that the syllabus, the content is being covered, or should I say, uncovered. So in science, they did simple machines, friction and drag, how gears work. In the social science, they learned about women empowerment, history of bicycles, and most importantly, active citizenship. In English, they wrote manuals, read extensively, made proposals and recommendations, and in math, data collection, analysis, ratio and proportion, and then, of course, a lot of art in their manuals, and everything was hand drawn. Towards the end of the project, an important lesson was to influence and to organize people and resources. I think if there's one important skill that people must have, it is the skill of changing hearts and minds and being able to organize people, resources, money to make change. They had then organized a rally where local politicians and bureaucrats cycled along the streets, uh, marking the start of what is now a historic movement in the country with people reclaiming the streets with Rahagiri. The students handheld the government for 6 months. They manned the streets themselves every Sunday, ensured they built awareness for the cause, and then handed over the initiative to the Rahagiri Trust, which we continue to be a part of. And now the movement has spread to 50 locations across the country. I know some of you are from Mumbai, so I definitely know Navi Mumbai has Rahagiri. Basically, what they do is on Sundays, they open out some streets to pedestrians and cyclists, and they're only open for non motorized transport. People basically get to reclaim the streets, kids are able to cycle. They were not able to get a bike path that year, and that was also a big learning for them because they understood change happens gradually. And sometimes seeds that you sow or small initiatives that you take can have a profound impact on thinking. So they were able to shift the whole debate towards development. What does development mean? Is it only getting more cars, more machinery, or is it addressing the other needs of people as well? And lo and behold, 8 years later, we finally got about an 8 to 10 kilometer long bike path in Gurgaon, which was opened recently. And many projects like this across grade levels form the core of our curriculum. This really is education at heritage. And our fourth graders have recently developed the biodiversity, fourth graders, imagine, developed the biodiversity index for Gurgaon, a study of almost 50 colonies that gives sufficient data to make a compelling case for the authorities and citizens of Gurgaon to change. So they studied the biodiversity in each one of their colonies, created a whole report, and are now making that case to the government and everybody, to all citizens of Gurgaon, to make real change. On numerous projects, our students have worked with real people, a real expert, craftsmen, farmers. We brought organic farmers to the stage, learned about the evolution of farming in the country, set up weekly farmers markets, challenged themselves in the outdoors, and worked on preserving monuments, rebuilding the Gurgaon library. That was a big project. And on issues related to pollution and the environment, on issues of health and safety. Much of their curriculum is designed around civic action and citizenship, solving real life problems. The students spend a significant part of their day every day on projects. A lot of these subjects get covered through them. What is not covered is dealt with in separate blocks that we have during the week. And this is definitely not something that happens on the side. This forms the core of the work we do. And to us, it's really projects and experiential learning are not the dessert, they're absolutely the main course. And while the change facilitators today, we've got far more experience than me as practitioners, so we'll share specific details of what you could engage with through the workshops planned in February. I only wish to say it is not as difficult as it may seem. This may seem grand because of the outcomes, but as a process, it is not so difficult to build it in one's own institution or one's own practice, even within their own classroom. And the success, there are 5 or 6 things I think that are important to success. One is thinking through the objectives of the lesson. What is it that we want our students to learn? What are we expecting? What is the purpose? Because eventually, purpose is going to drive impact. Second is to pick an appropriate project, and we did some talking on that. Initially, I shared with you how to pick a project, to look at it in the fourth quadrant. Pick something real, not just a simulation where children can make a real impact in their local context. There are plenty of issues children care about. You can find so many of them in your local, and it's relevant for projects to be it's essential for projects to be relevant to children and ensure the project lends itself to sustained inquiry. Third, map your curricular outcomes to the project, looking for opportunities where the project could serve those objectives. So it's a constant sort of tension between matching the curricular objectives and the larger objectives that you may have. But it's not so difficult to find the balance. A couple of projects and you'll start feeling more comfortable. Uh, Fourth thing is to plan meticulously. But remember, it is the continuous planning that matters more than just a static plan. You'll have to exercise the principles of experiential learning in the planning process itself, reviewing and improvising at every stage. Last but not the least, trust the children. While you must provide the right questions and the scaffolding for them to succeed, remember the greatest projects and the greatest learning would happen if you genuinely let them steer it. Let go. Go ahead and engage freely. This is not rocket science, and I would encourage you to refer to our website, hsls.org, for more information, and particularly uh, elschools.org. This is the website of Expeditionary Learning Schools, that is a chain of about 150 to 200 experiential learning schools in the US. I would say as an institutional body, this is perhaps the greatest body of knowledge available on experiential learning. You'll find hundreds of projects and resources that you can use very, very easily. I would request Smriti to just leave this on for a moment if you want to take a picture of this slide. Uh, and thank you so much for listening, and thank you so much, Kumi, and everybody at the summit for having me.
Excuse me, could we please ask people to mute their sound? It's causing a disturbance. Can we ask people to mute their sound, please? Thank you.
Over to you, Kumi.
Hear me? Can you hear me? All right, I'll repeat. It's extremely heartening to know the kind of initiative that you have launched in the heritage schools. A lot of NGOs, a lot of alternative education systems are trying out vision-led ways in which we can really impart holistic education. I know the word holistic has almost become a cliche because we use it far too liberally. But what I see you doing in Heritage School and in the I Am Teacher course run at the American School is a beautiful blend of emphasis on both knowledge and skills. Today, there is the latest buzzword is develop skills, but we definitely cannot throw content out of the window. Content forms the base. But of course, one does not refer to content as mere rote learning. Content is like, very simply put in Indian way of thinking, it is your atta with which you make chapati. You can't really make chapati without the atta, so you need that content. But how you shape that content and how you work with it in a skillful manner is what makes a difference. Therefore, thank you very, very much, Mr. Manit Jain, for your presentation. And now I'll give you a very, very brief idea of the way in which the summit has been conceptualized. Give me a moment to share my screen, please. Is it visible? Is it visible to all? Great. The Global Tipping Point Summit is intended to be slightly different from the seminars and workshops and conferences that we attend. This is an action-oriented project which starts with this summit and which carries on for a whole year. At the center is a speaker. In this case today, we have Mr. Manit Jain as a speaker. 4 change facilitators have been liaising with him over months and deciding on a very exciting mini project. These 4 people will provide training over 12 hours to the action group members. How do we constitute the action group? Very, very simply put, after the session today, by tomorrow 4 p.m., Google Forms will be up on our website, www.gtpsforchange.org. Those of you who are really interested in being part of the action and getting trained by the 4 change facilitators entirely free of cost, could please sign up. Age, gender, no bars at all. Never mind if you've had 1 year of experience or no experience, we encourage the youth to come on board because we believe that this should become a movement. We should actively work towards visible change. So the action group members first get trained for 12 hours by the change facilitators. They go out into the world and they implement those changes. These are all projects. At the end of 1 year, they submit a project report. We will then create a white paper and send this to the government and say, we're not merely talking about change. This is a change that we've actually achieved. So we just take these small steps. All of us take these small steps and change must happen because, as the title of the summit says, we all are working towards the tipping point. Once the critical mass has been reached, change must happen. So with this faith, we work together. I strongly encourage you now to listen carefully to what the 4 change facilitators have to say, the areas in which they are going to provide training, and then sign up as action group members. There will be only 10 who will be selected, And these 10 will be trained to go out into the world and make a difference. Thank you very much.
Thank you, ma'am. We now move on to our first change facilitator. Manisha Nanda is a teacher, educator, innovator with the Dhirubhai Ambani International School. As a teacher of interdisciplinary subjects and a round square representative of the school, she has worked with primary school as well as the international curriculum. Manisha works well with areas of skill building, extracurricular, and co curricular activities. Her profile as a teacher of new age subjects, as well as being the round square representative of the school, necessitates engagement with new age learning and developing 21st century learner skills. As a certified MIEE teacher, she works on leading ways in innovations using technology support in education. Welcome, Ms. Nanda. Over to you.
Thank you so much, Nina, and good evening, everyone. I'm just hoping that, like Manit has set the path and sent the stone rolling on experiential learning. Uh, what I am about to share with you in terms of my experiences with technology will fit into his top right corner of his quadrant with being high on importance and being appropriate, as well as, like Omi said, be the chakla and the balun to roll out the roti. And with that, I'm just going to share my screen to share my presentation. I'm hoping that my presentation is visible to everybody. And today I'm just going to share my experiences with technology being the catalyst to enhance learning experiences. Before we proceed, I just want to share this one quote, which I really feel is appropriate with this context. We need technology in every classroom and in every student and teacher's hand because it is the pen and the paper of our time. It is the lens through which we experience most of our world. I'm sure most of us will agree with this quote as it resonates with us and has been for the last few months. It has shown us that technology has to be befriended and is also the crux of our efforts in creating virtual classrooms for our students. As we look at experiential learning, technology, as I refer to it, has become the backbone of execution of such hands-on learning experiences, more so in these times, and I'm sure most of you have experienced the thrust offered through various mediums using technology in the past few months. In this context, I've had great experiences in using many online platforms to support action-oriented 3Cs of communication, collaboration, and creativity. Communication is the essence of any information sharing. And in this pandemic, we become very aware of multiple gateways of communication that have opened up. I'm sure most of us will agree that we spend more time chatting on WhatsApp than face-to-face. And we've become expert communicators with the use of emojis and GIFs to communicate our feelings. Like us, our young learners have also been hooked on digital technology. They're literally born with their fingers on the button. I sometimes find they know more than us, and that is what becomes a great motivator for their participation. Creating handles on social media, sharing work done using hashtag actually helps create and build communities of learners working on or similar project ideas. This is a great learning enhancer, not only for the students, but also for teachers. For example, there are already groups on Facebook for subjects like social studies, sciences, maths, etc. People are sharing their ideas and resources, asking questions, and collectively building a good database of information and resources. This becomes a great platform for communication and exchange of ideas. For students, the likes and comments they receive for their projects when they're shared online just spurs them on to do better. Collaboration, well, we wonder how. Now in these times, really, But we've just realized in the last 7 months that we've been working on Google Duo, Zoom, webinars, and now can't imagine life without them. Pandemic or no pandemic. This is the new real for all of us. I mean, even right now, we are using technology to collaborate on this summit. Even in our virtual classrooms, technology has supported the interaction and discussions and sharing of ideas and collaborative learning. And the most important aspect that has helped enhance the collaboration is that technology helps erase geographical boundaries. It is now possible to have virtual interaction with students of various other schools within your region, as well as across the world. Of course, time zone permitting, because technology has still not come there to help. For example, projects about culture and languages around the world can have students interacting with international schools and creating project-based learning. With great ease now, the study of the ancient Rome civilization can be conducted with participation of students from schools in Rome, while students are sitting in the Colosseum and talking about the monument and the history through a simple Zoom call. That's another example how technology is a great enabler, bringing the world closer and well connected. The third C, creativity. With our young learners, there is no stopping them. They have access to multiple apps, tools that has provided them creative stimulus and helps them construct and present ideas that are uniquely their own. It excites them to create and showcase digital artworks, be it in the form of short films, infographics, vlogs, etc. This becomes a great tool to record all their work done throughout the project. And slowly we've realized this generation just hates to write things down using paper and pen. So this is the most convenient way of having them record their work while in progress and after that. Developing quizzes, gamifying lessons, using new modes of technology for making presentations. Such beautiful templates are available online for their access. Apps are now allowing us to make videos. And for our young learners, that's rarely an inhibition because they love being in front of cameras. A collage of pictures, oh, how they love selfies, serves as a good record of work in progress and also evidence that we all need to collect for our archives as teachers and our logs. So here, technology has been like a great help. As teachers, this is something that we're very conscious of. How do we bring in a lesson that is impactful and caters to multiple intelligences in classes? And this is the place where technology gives you the biggest boost, because you can use technology to cater to all the intelligences. We can create lessons with audiovisuals, which is of course an automatic requirement of online teaching, but enhanced with a plethora of options using technology, creating unique learning experiences. Technology also simplifies our tasks as teachers. I find it so easy to take attendance, creating lesson plans embedded with visuals, links of videos, writing great comments for report cards, using references from online templates, maintaining logs and records, and archiving my work. More so, recording my classes and reflecting upon how to better the students' experiences and also improve my skill is a great boost. Yes, technology has become my friend in a very big way. I'm sure most of you will agree. At the same time, sometimes there is a thought lurking. Will we as teachers be replaced by technology? I don't think so. Because the skill that we have is a skill of making sure we stimulate our students. The skill that we have is where we create curious lifelong learners. We help them explore new possibilities of learning, finding new pathways of learning and growing. And technology is the biggest tool and enabler in this direction. So with that, I'd say thank you so much for listening in, everybody.
Thank you, Ms. Nanda. We welcome our next change facilitator, Ms. Anna Correa. She's been an educator for the last 34 years, a teacher of mathematics, a school supervisor, and school principal, teaching in schools in Pune and Mumbai. As a principal of St. Stanislaus High School, she has introduced many innovative practices for teachers and developed a special value-added curriculum for students of her school. She is currently the principal of St. Stanislaus International School, Mumbai. Welcome, Ms. Correa, and over to you. Thank you.
Hi, and good evening, everybody. Am I audible? I'm delighted to be a part of this very happening virtual space, the Global Tipping Point Summit. Thank you, Kumi. Thank you, Donna, for including me here. I'm also very excited to be part of this team with Manit as a lead of experts who are sharing their experiences on experiential learning. You just heard from Manisha, and there's Anusha and Naghma to follow me. Now, I have been an educator for the last 3 decades or more, and my experience has mostly been in state board schools. And state board schools follow a rigid government mandated curriculum. You have restrictions on what you can do and what you can't do. There are limited resources, limited funds. We have large classroom sizes, a very diverse group of students from first generation learners to middle income, lower income, and even a few affluent students thrown in. And the teachers in our schools generally follow time honored traditional practices, maybe because it is convenient, maybe because the classroom sizes are large, or maybe, if I'm being very cynical, they are many of them are in government jobs and they have security of tenure. Now, in this scenario, there are many schools, including mine, St. Stanislaus School, which are doing wonderful things in experiential learning. Our students are learning differently, and this is because of a little effort that we have put in to change the way our students are learning. And so, my 3 sessions, which are going to be, I don't know when they are going to be, maybe in February, are going to be focused on this aspect of experiential learning, the traditional versus experiential learning involves the role of the teacher, which changes in experiential learning, the changing role of the student vis-a-vis the role of the teacher. I'm going to be sharing some techniques and methods of experiential learning. I'm going to give you some examples that we have practiced, some big ones like Manit shared with you, that wonderful bicycle project, some very simple, practical, down to earth methods, pedagogies, which you can follow in a regular classroom environment, in a fixed curriculum environment. There are, of course, some challenges which we will also discuss. So basically, I'm going to be going through this entire experience of moving away from traditional teaching learning processes and moving towards student-centered learning by doing in schools. If this is your cup of tea, if you find that this is interesting, definitely please sign in, because I can promise you 2 things. I'll be giving you a lot of information on experiential learning, and I'm going to be giving you practical tips on how you can learn experientially. It's a different way of learning, different from the traditional learning. So thank you. That's what I had to share with you.
Thank you so much, Ms. Correa. We now move on to our next facilitator, Dr. Anusha Ramanathan. She is a curriculum consultant at Center for Education, Innovation, and Action Research in the Tata Institute of Social Sciences. She designs, develops, facilitates, and coordinates courses, especially MOOCs. She is also visiting faculty for English literature and business studies across various colleges and universities. Her research is focused on assessment, English language teaching, policy, and technology in education. Welcome, Dr. Anusha. Over to you.
Thank you for that very generous introduction, Nina. So I'm going to build on, and we all as change facilitators will be building on what Manit had shared at the beginning, and also what Manisha talked about as the chakla in the balin and the balin, and how we will actually try and ensure that we come out with wonderful, different, not necessarily uniform sizes, but a variety of learning experiences that you can engage with. As Anna pointed out, there is a very rich experience that each one of us brings to the table. What I have shared on the screen is just one example of how we can take something as simple every day as a cup and take that and explore the history, the physical sciences, bind biology, bind geography, mathematics, economics, and so much more, including languages, etc., into and level it up and down. For instance, it could be done at the 3rd grade, it can be done at the 1st grade, it can also be done using the same uh, resource can be done at the 10th grade. We have to level up and down the learning. So interdisciplinary nature of learning is also something that we bring to the table. My experience with experiential learning has been for a long time, actually, and Dr. Kumi Vivaina is someone who also has always encouraged us to experience the learning in different ways, to even when we are talking about text, to be thinking about also the connect of the world. And my other experiences have been with working with CBSE teachers and bringing in projects. And so these are kinds of projects that we can bring to the table and connect the entire ball game together. There could be technology, as Manisha pointed out. There can be a whole school project where different levels of students can participate and bring in their different levels of learning to exhibit, as Anna was talking about. And we can all be very firmly in that right topmost quadrant that Manit was talking about in his presentation. And we can have relevance, for instance, in terms of biology or biodegradability, about communicating. It's very important in this age to be communicating very well, but also to be critically thinking about information and to be positioning it and the best way that we will remember, as Anna's slide said, is by doing. And it is through that that we experience the learning. So what we bring to the table to you is this ability to merge various disciplines, various technologies, be they paper and pen, and to be also thinking about the administrative levels and focusing on how they can be implemented in different contexts. But we hope to get from you, the cup is empty, and we hope that you will fill it with your ideas. And I'm here to share what I know, but I'm also here to learn from you and with you as we bring to the table all the experiences that each one of us has and the context that we all work in, which are very varied and different. And we hope that it can be a wonderful learning experience for all of us. That's what I had to share. We hope that you can ask us questions in the question answer session. Nina has one more dynamic change facilitator to introduce, so I'll stop here.
Thank you, Anusha. We all hope that not only does the cup fill, but it overflows. We now move on to our next change facilitator, Ms. Naghma Shaikh. She has been teaching Cambridge International Language and Literature since 28 years in India and abroad. She is a teacher trainer for MISA, Cambridge University Press, and Collins, and has reviewed books for the CUP and Collins. Currently, she is associated with the JBCN International School Borivali and teaches A-level English. Welcome, Ms. Shaikh. Over to you. Thank you.
Thank you. We have seen and heard in this illuminating session that experiential learning has many benefits. It hones skills of critical thinking, collaboration, problem solving, and self-reflection, among others. It draws upon their creative, imaginative, and innovative streaks. It promotes a growth mindset and trains them to apply their learning to real life situations. It gives them an idea of their career trajectories. It establishes an understanding of the people around them as well as develops a worldview. There are many more benefits that accrue to learners, as encapsulated by our esteemed speaker, Mr. Manit Jain, and our illustrious change facilitators, Ms. Manisha Nanda, Ms. Anna Correa, and Ms. Anusha Ramanathan. I would also like to point out one aspect, and that is experiential learning, which I have practiced in Cambridge International Schools from so many past years. I would say can easily and beautifully and purposefully and powerfully be adapted to all schools. Um, Due to some good experiences that I've had with people I have liaisoned with and interacted with, even schools in the interiors, BMC schools have taken up these experiential learning, action projects, and project based learning, and they have benefited. So here are a few of the action-based projects that I've been involved in since the last 28 years. So these are the specific action-based projects and activities. So you can see that podcasting is something that I have taken up very strongly. Voiceovers. My students are radio DJs, not only in India, but even in the UAE. Um, Cooking is something that I really am very interested in doing. Visual arts, performing arts, advertising, media is one aspect which is very close to my heart. Marketing, designing. Students have designed rocking chairs for old people, for those who need them, those who love sitting in rocking chairs. And students have designed jewelry, blogging. Students have written articles for newspapers and magazines. They have their own online and print newsletters and magazines. Gardening is something that I really want many of our students to get back to. Of course, environmental protection is so, so important. Art and craft comes in a big way. Um, of course, inventions, why not? Our children are so inventive. And of course, many, many more. So my focus will be on integrating language and literature with subjects such as science, commerce, design and technology, environmental management, marine science, sports, health and nutrition, social media, AI and robotics, and of course the humanities. I invite you all, lifelong learners, to join us on this beautiful journey of learning as action facilitators. And I'm sure that you will have many exciting and extraordinary ideas about experiential learning action projects that can be taken up by your schools and your students. Thank you very much.
I think you will agree with me that these projects seem so interesting that learning from these people who have tried out experiential learning would be worth your while. Several people have asked on the chat when the Google Forms will be available. As I said, the Google Forms will be available from 4 p.m. tomorrow. And if this excites you, please sign in. So we have some very interesting questions from the audience, and I'll try and run them as quickly as possible with my summit coordinator, Donna. One question is, constraints of syllabus, exam-oriented system really tie us down. How do we incorporate the 4 quadrants in higher education, Mr. Manit Jain?
Yeah, as I had mentioned, there will always be some amount of tension. And of course, until grade 8, we haven't found it very challenging to implement experiential learning in its true multidisciplinary spirit. But as we get into CBSC, particularly in grades 11 and 12, if that's what you're talking about, it does get pretty challenging. And then one needs to look at domain specific ideas. So you can run good projects within a subject. And while it is necessary in the current context for children to have the right keywords and everything, whatever the examination boards require of them to get marks. But I think there is absolutely no restriction on how we want to teach a subject. And given the time restriction, we'll have to be sensible in planning, but we do find that within the subject, there isn't so much of a challenge.
Right. I completely agree with you. As a university professor, one always believed that the only way of teaching in the university is talk chalk. But then it didn't have to be that way. I kept on experimenting with my students. And yes, projects excite students because they involve them completely. Thank you, Mr. Manit Jain. Donna, do you have a question?
Yes, a question for Manit. Um, the municipal schools are ill equipped. What would you suggest on how we could handle experiential learning in these schools?
Yeah. To give more specific inputs, I would need to know the context of the school. And I would say that teachers in the country have great autonomy. Whether they see it or not, uh, our classrooms are the least visited classrooms by coaches or experts or supervisors or principals, because they simply don't have the time. We don't have much of a culture of instructional leadership. So that does give you the freedom, but you'll have to exercise courage yourself in taking it on inside your own classroom. And like I said, it is not a rocket science. You could look up resources. You could read. If you just Googled experiential learning, there are a few very very good books. You get some basic understanding of good pedagogy, and I'm sure you must be implementing much of it in your classrooms, anyways. Uh, don't wait for the systems to change.
Absolutely.
If we were to wait for, I can tell you in 2004, when I had this clear idea that I want to change things, I thought I was the only person thinking about it. I had no idea that there were so many educators in the world who were thinking exactly on the same lines, who thought about it 100 years ago and implemented something. So the first schools that I actually visited were the Aurobindo schools, Sri Aurobindo schools, Rambika, Pondicherry, and then the Krishnamurti schools. And there's such incredible work happening there. It was a paradigm shift in my own thinking, and we did study tours with teachers, and our minds just opened up to possibility. It's about understanding possibilities and understanding that the power is in my hand. I'll have to take charge. I can't wait for everything else to change around me.
There is another question that's coming from the audience, and that is, when you say that you let go and allow children to determine their learning experiences, are you talking about creating a curriculum with them collaboratively?
See, that's always a possibility. You could, if you want to run a free progress school, yes, absolutely, you can create what children are going to learn alongside the children. Yet that may be a bit ambitious. I know that they're able to do it, and my own children went to a Sri Aurobindo school for their early years. And they used to all sit down and decide what they're going to learn in that week or that month or that year. They used to set goals together. Now, that's a great practice, but if you're dealing with 30, 40 kids with a single teacher in a classroom, it does get very challenging. So what I would say is that the freedom and the choices can come in the manner that you approach a project, but the curricular outcomes or what the standards that we're expected to adhere to some level will have to be integrated within the projects, or if it's outside the project, like I said, we have blocks to do that. When I talk about freedom for children, it is essentially in the space of then allowing them some latitude, at least in taking decisions. So if you're designing a project, once you've decided this is the project and these are the learning outcomes, then at least give them the freedom to manage that project, and you'll be surprised at the outcomes. So many teachers come back to me and tell me that they could have never thought of the ideas that students think of, and they bring so much. And as some very wise man said, I forget the name, that the most abundant and the most underutilized resource inside a classroom is student thinking. Please make use of it.
Thank you.
Okay, there's one more question, Mr. Manit Jain. How would you motivate teachers? Very often the students are motivated because it's a new way of learning, it's experiential learning, it's interesting. But teachers are show the resistance. So what are the ways you have used to motivate teachers?
See, one of the things that we did, of course, was exposure. When you expose people to different ideas, different pedagogies, like there was a book that we read in our early years, and I'm talking about 15 years, 16 years ago when we first started implementing. The book is called Starting from Scratch. It's a book by Stephen Levy. Now, he's one of the very, very experienced experiential learning teachers, coaches. He came and worked with our schools teachers also later on. At that time, it was a dream. We just read his book, and we got so many ideas. Second, some kind of, if study trips are not possible, is there some possibility to watch videos and other resources of these people doing stuff differently? Third, I would say, again, purpose drives impact. When it comes to these things, it's about creating a sense of purpose, and it can't happen in a direct, prescriptive manner. My belief is that human hunger for meaning will always trump human laziness. We're all lazy, we're all intrinsically lazy to some extent. But when we experience meaning, one success, uh, and our lives can transform. We've seen it happening one person at a time in our institution. Uh, it took a lot of open dialogues, a lot of understanding people, understanding their pains, exposing them to new paradigms, and gradually shifting thinking. But one thing I can tell you is that the mind needs to be consulted in its growth. That's what Sri Aurobindo
What
says.
people said.
And you cannot force this upon everybody, but you can infect people with your own enthusiasm and with your own sense of purpose and meaning. Give them things that they'll do for the first time in their lives, and they'll feel like uh, they're worthwhile. A lot of teachers have also been battered so much. We've been really unfair to teachers as a society. Uh, Give them that sense of belief in themselves. Do everything with them that you're expecting them to do with the students as school leaders, and you'll see change.
There is another question here. How did you manage to convince the parents and recruit them into thinking your way?
It didn't happen. Didn't happen easily. So, in the first year of our changed curriculum, we were mentally prepared that many parents are going to leave the school. So, our school only started in 2003. 2004, I had this vision. 2005 was when we implemented the curriculum from scratch. We created everything ourselves. And about 35% of our parents left in 2005. And they said, no, we can't have you treat our kids as guinea pigs. So my instant response to them used to be that nothing can be worse than what is. Anything will be an improvement. Please let us try. And many of them saw pure good intent, but I can tell you we were not experts by any standards, but we eliminated every single symbol of traditional education, eliminated the entire period timetable system, block system. We eliminated textbooks, we eliminated testing of any kind or examination that were pre-announced. Yes, there were continuous assessments, but those assessments were very humane and low stakes and focused on assessment for learning in a more diagnostic way rather than in a manner of judging kids. And parents got very, very anxious that everything that they understood as an evidence of learning was removed. Uh, and I remember almost twice a week I would run workshops with them. And in those times, it was very difficult to do it because you had to run workshops physically. So they would be coming there, being really mad. And I used to then always run a glad, mad, sad workshop with them. So I would ask them to say, okay, something must be going right. What is happening? And many of them would then say, my child is too happy, but of course he's going to be happy. You don't put him through the grind. I said, no, there is a grind, but it's a different kind of a grind. It's a different kind of a rigor. It doesn't have to be meaningless. And gradually they started understanding. But over the first couple of years, many parents quit. But that was 2004, 2005. This kind of a large scale experiment had not happened in mainstream schools anywhere in the country. This kind of a radical thing, no uniforms, nothing. I mean, they removed every symbol of traditional education. Now, with online platforms to reach out to the parents, far more awareness amongst the parent community, I don't think it is challenging at all. I think they should be asking for this education.
That's wonderful. One of the things that I find really striking about your I Am Teacher training course is your emphasis on self-awareness and self-regulation. I mean, it's such a huge step towards making teachers really effective. So I think that's one of the highlights of your program.
So,
do we have any questions? Sorry. Yes, please go on.
and one of the exercises, and I thought this might be a specific thing that could be helpful for school leaders who are wanting to make change. One of the exercises that we did with teachers initially, and we still do it, was called a dream exercise, a personal visioning exercise. So they used to map their dreams from when they were kids, when they were like 5 years old, 7 years, 10 years, 13 years, 16 years, 20 years. What were their dreams? And often we used to find that for many of the people, even in a context like ours, which is a kind of an upscale school, many of the teachers, when we asked them, what is your dream now, could not think about a dream for themselves. So most of them would say, my family stays okay, everything is all, there's peace, there's absence of conflict, forget about peace. And they could not think of a dream for themselves. They said, okay, let's park the family for a moment. Fine. Let's say all of this is there. Now, what do you want? What do you really want? And unfortunately, they could not come up with anything. And we had to work for weeks to pull out a dream. And when that started surfacing, it was so beautiful, so magical for many of these people that they understood that they themselves are people. They're not just a part of a whole. Yes, they are a part of a whole as well, but they have some individual existence. And we also recognized at that point of time that for many of them, they had made very few choices in their lives. Given our patriarchal society that has been abusing women for so many years, and a large percentage of teachers being women, we recognized that many of them had not made any choices in their lives. What they studied, what college they went to, who they married, what they did after, when they had their kids, and that uh, that really hit us. And I mean, one knew of it, but when one started working with people, we understood the gravity of it, and we recognized that this is a whole process of empowering the person, not simply empowering the teacher. Uh, and that's what I think got us to shift the mindset. Sorry, Kumi, that was a long answer, but
No, but it was extremely meaningful. Every word you said was so powerful in itself. Donna, do we have any further questions, or do we have questions for the change facilitators?
Not just now. Kumi, I think you can pass it on to.
Right. Shalanta, would you take over and kindly propose a vote of thanks?
Thank you, Dr. Kumi.
Add a couple of words there.
Yes. Thank you, Dr. Kumi. Thank you, Mr. Manit Jain, for a highly informative presentation. Many thanks also to the team of change facilitators comprising Ms. Anna Correa, Ms. Anusha Ramanathan, Ms. Manisha Nanda, and Ms. Naghma Shaikh. We know that you have worked consistently for months to put together a very meaningful action project. Our thanks also go out to all the participants who have joined us today from all over India and different countries of the world. Do also remember to register for the Parenting Summit from the 8th to the 31st of January 2021. Kindly note that these sessions are specially scheduled only for weekends for your convenience. We need you to work collaboratively with us to bring about the change you want to see in the world. Just give me a second. I will just share my screen for details on the action project. The Google form for the action project on leveraging interdisciplinary modeling experiences by Mr. Manit Jain will be available on our website, www.gtpsforchange.org, from Monday, 23rd November 2020. Do also remember to join us next weekend for 2 sessions. Do also remember to join us next weekend for 2 sessions by 2 different dynamic speakers. The first one going to be held on Saturday, 28th November from 4 to 5:30 p.m. on the need for creating sustainable livelihood solutions for rural educated youth by the founder of Learning Space Foundation, Mr. Nitin Orion, and creating a sourceful, intelligent, evolutionary narrative through 8 teams on Sunday, 29th November by the education futurist, Dr. Kumi S. Vivina. Also, like and follow our social media handles, the Global Tipping Point Summit on Facebook, LinkedIn, Instagram, and Twitter. Until then, thank you and stay safe.